If it's not well hearable, then please just let me know, and I'm happy, of course, to pick up the microphone in a minute. But thank you all for joining us here at Wordline. My name is Don Ginsel. I'm the founder and CEO of Holland Fintech. And yeah, we'd love to bring you together every second, Thursday of the month these days, usually Friday, for the ones you might know, to actually talk about fintech, latest developments. And we've, since the beginning of this year, put this into a theme, and today we're going to talk more about sort of the security side with a strong link to payments, as we're now today hosted by Wordline. So we're really happy to actually be able to be here. And so thank you all for joining and wanting to spend the afternoon here with us to talk about what's happening in fintech. We've got some really great speakers, as you can see already here on the screen, but I'll talk you through a bit on the program. So we're hosting this together with Holland Utrecht, which is a regional development company for this region. Esther will talk a little bit about that in a minute and tell us why they're so keen to work with us and get you all enthusiastic about this region. For the rest, I'll be doing a market update, as for some of you who might know. That means that we're going to look back at what happened in June in the sense of news. And talk you through that a bit, what kind of trends we saw to hopefully enlighten you and inform you a little bit. There's a lot of the information will come back later in the pub quiz in Kahoot, as you might, for some of you that are familiar, might know. So I definitely urge you to be very careful in your attention and pick it up and hopefully make a good score during the quiz. Then we're going to hear from Johan Maas from Wordline. Then we're going to get Lambert Dijkstra from Octo to tell us a bit about their story. We're going to do the quiz then. Then we'll get Michiel from Zinio to talk a little bit about that. And Robin Smith is going to wrap things up from Inverity. Then we'll close things off and hopefully get some time to spend each other again. It was really nice to see everyone already connecting and having a drink over there. But we'll continue that after the program, and so we'll keep it as short as possible. Keep the information density high and speed things up.
Thank you for coming and joining us at Wordline. We are very happy to be the co-host of this event, and since Holland Fintech is located in Amsterdam, and also Utrecht is a very good area for many companies in the finance and fintech sector, I thought it must be good that there is more to do here, like this type of meetups. Unfortunately, many companies are already in a holiday because the school started this week. So it's the quality. So I'm happy that you are here. My name is Esther Schaafsma. I work in the team international of the Holland Fintech region, and there I assist foreign companies by their setup establishment in the region. And my specialty is fintech, digital, cybersecurity. So this is very much a meetup for me as well. Yes, it's definitely. You recognize Rabobank. I thought Carol might be here for. Yes, you recognize your hometown. Yes, since we are companies from all of the Netherlands, I thought I can tell you something about the Utrecht region, but I prefer to tell you something about regional development agencies. Who of you is familiar with them, with that type of organization? So good. I like to see that. As you can tell, we have in the meantime nine different regional development agencies in the Netherlands, and they also collaborate as a network together because there are more and more topics where we are involved. The government has different tasks, and then they ask us to perform them, like in Corona time, the Corona overbruggingslening. So they asked to perform it and to do the things. Development to more innovative character. So we stimulate the innovations in economy and thrive. That we have more welfare and more thriving economy. What is a formula of a ROM? Every ROM is set up in a quite similar way, although they have different topics or different themes that they have as a key focus. Innovation is one of the parts, so they stimulate building ecosystems around the team, partnerships, public-private partnerships. They try to connect the companies with knowledge institutes and so forth. The second topic is the investor part, so maybe some of you know that already. They have funds and then they stimulate startups, scale-ups, innovative SME companies with their growth. So if you have, for example, a new an innovation that you want to set in the market, but you need some development money, then you can pitch your idea for a regional development agency, and then they can see if it's worth to fund that startup or that idea, so you can grow. The third part is international. Every ROM has an international team where they have both sides. So one is to help the scale-ups and startups with their expansion into the rest of Europe or the rest of the world. So, and they do that by collaborating with the RVO, and then they go on a mission and they take along the companies so you can meet each other. And that's something worthwhile to participate in the mission, so you can get to know each other, and sometimes, you end up with a collaboration within your own country instead of collaboration abroad, but that's a very good opportunity. And on the other side, and that's where I work, is to assist foreign companies that are interested in the Netherlands, to help them establish their company in a place where they can grow best. So in the past it's my company, nobody needs to know that I'm working on establishing a company in my region, but nowadays we work together and see where the specific company fits best, so it finds its clients, the people they need are present, and that works very well. And of course, nowadays, more and more is getting the business intelligence an important part. So we are using all databases. So you need also the people to do that. And in the end, we try to get impact on the economy by doing this. And of course, you are here in the Utrecht region. So what is our focus on the economy? As of this year, we have the heart of health as a proposition of the region, and that means healthy people in a healthy environment in a healthy society. And that's all marketing term. So, but the main focus areas are media gaming because of Hilversum. Hilversum is also participating in our regional development agency. So we have a big cluster of that. Life sciences and health, because we have a very well-known life sciences park with a lot of important innovations like the biohub and regenerative medicine. So that's really good. And Earth Valley is the sustainability branch of our company, and sustainability is like smart mobility, future energy, circular building, and those topics. And together it's the beating heart of a healthy society. This is more in depth, but it's already mentioned some parts. And how do we support the companies? That's by investing. When you start, you need some investment, but maybe you need some contacts and go with a mission abroad. We give investment information, trade support, trade missions, and another important element is like this event. We co-host it with Wordline, and that's to bring together all the people and the different sectors and organizations in the region. So therefore, you are welcome to talk to us when you think I have a question that's not my core business and you want to know more about it. You can always connect with the regional development agency in your region, and they can see how they can help you. They can connect you with someone, they can connect companies with each other, they can connect you to knowledge institutes, or they just are a sparring partner to think with you and maybe make a next step. And I wish you great fun here with more topic-related talks. And I can.
Yes, let's give Esther a big hand. Then just really briefly on Holland Fintech, for those of you who are not familiar yet, Holland Fintech is an association of companies that are active in the financial industry and are driven to make an impact with innovation. So Fintech lets us talk about tech to a certain extent, but actually what we talk about mostly is how is behavior of people changing and how are organizations changing by new entrants in the market, by changing the fabric of the landscape itself. Because it used to be very monolithic with large enterprises that did everything in-house, and you actually see that we're going to a scattered landscape where everything is outsourced into smaller portions, meaning you can actually work with a global supply chain to provide financial services. Well, that poses all kinds of opportunities as well as challenges for both the industry, regulators, and all kinds of other stakeholders. And we just think that we should collaborate together to understand that game and hopefully also provide business opportunities and better understanding based on that. And one of the things we do are actually about to educate everyone, make sure everyone speaks the same language, and make sure you're connected so you can actually meet each other, learn from each other, and potentially do business together. One of the ways of actually doing that is by sharing with you what we saw happening in FinTech to perhaps give you a bit of some of the updates and perhaps distill some of the bigger trends. Some of the interesting things is, for example, Diebold Nixdorf. I'm not sure if you're familiar to that, but if you actually withdraw money from a cash machine in the wall, you might recognize that name because they are actually the supplier of most of these machines, the ATMs. They've gone bankrupt, and it's quite interesting to see that, of course, we've seen a very strong decline in cash machines across the board. So I think it's a big signal that they've not been doing so well, even though there's actually quite a big interest still in all kinds of other solutions, but they've been have a hard time actually coping with that. Stripe, big payment firm, just like a Wordline, actually entered the credit market. They announced it last month, where they started to provide credit as well, focused on merchants. Quite an interesting proposition, and I think that really fits well in the trend where you see that payment firms keep on adding other services to actually maintain their market share and grow the depth relationship with their customers, and credit plays an important role there. That's why you see also a lot of payment firms going for either e-money license or a banking license to actually be able to extend more services to their customers. Well, the Netherlands also has finally a very big revolution. You're able to pay contactless, or actually check in contactless with your bank pass in public transport. We've been waiting for that for a very long time, after of course seeing in places like London where it already worked for a very long time. You can now actually check in with your bank pass if you want to take the public transport generally everywhere, or even with Apple Wallet, Google Wallet kind of passes as well. And everyone's quite enthusiastic about it. Some big national campaigns are still running about it, but quite interesting to see that. Other news in the Netherlands is that we see, of course, that the crypto market is still very much under pressure. The past couple of years, we saw that the crypto industry was very much scrutinizing the Dutch central bank for not actually chasing the non-licensed parties that were still making an offer in the Dutch market. And you see now that actually the Dutch central bank is picking that up, being very fierce on with fines and forcing crypto parties to actually obtain their license or registration. And Binance is one of the ones that actually have now decided to pull out of the Netherlands because of that. And it's quite interesting to see, and you see also well that the cost of regulations are very high. We saw earlier this year that Lightbit, for example, crypto platform based out of the Netherlands, decided to stop because they didn't think that they were able to recover, especially their compliance cost in the Netherlands. So it's an expensive game. So you see kind of a shakeout in that market. Quite interesting to see that. Some of the Dutch platforms, of course, are benefiting from that. So you see, if you open the newspapers now, you see, for example, Amdex making big campaigns to actually say, okay, Binance is going, we're staying, come over to us. So you probably see a bit of a concentration there from the crypto parties. Well, we saw, of course, at the beginning of the year that Silicon Valley Bank went overboard and that HSBC basically had to pick up the pieces of that. It's interesting to see, it was very much in the dark what was going to happen after that, but you actually see now that they announced they were actually going to expand Silicon Valley Bank as a brand and as a presence globally, where it used to be mostly US and Europe focused. They're really going to expand their presence, and they really want to keep on being active in the venture finance market, where SVB had quite a special proposition. So I think that's really good news, especially for venture capital firms, but also for some of the larger venture firms that actually could go into direct venture debt. Then, of course, the European Union has been really active on all kinds of legislation. So last month we saw that the retail investment strategy came out, where they want to talk about, where they look at consumer protection in case of investments. The AI Act comes out in Parliament, which basically sort of sets out the rules for dealing with AI. You see that, of course, is not a generic application for the financial industry, but you see that some applications are actually specifically mentioned about credit scoring and identification, for example, and actually do get a paragraph in the AI Act that are really relevant for the financial industry to keep track of. And PSD3 finally got at the table last month. So we know that with the open banking regulations called PSD2, a big leap was made already a couple of years ago to open up the banking landscape and the banking data sets to third parties. You'll probably hear a bit from Octo, for example, about that later on. But you see that actually it didn't work that well. So you see that consumers still don't really get the proposition, the data is not complete, the data is not completely open, there's a lot of friction still in the process. Not everybody too happy about it, so it was a nice first attempt, but you see now that the European Committee has been trying to investigate what kind of challenges there still are, and actually are, in any case, offering a new proposed setup in PSD3 to sort of amend all the fields that were still there in the market. Then we get quite some acquisitions. I think this is also quite typical for the time that we are. You see that there's less venture capital available, and there's a lot of pressure on the market. Growth has been slowing down a bit. So you see that not every party is able to stay independent from that perspective, because the independent money is not available. So we were expecting already to see much more M&A in the market, and well, here in any case we got a couple of nice ones with Backbase acquiring Nucoro, Nasdaq acquiring Adenza, big data player, and Visa acquiring Pismo in Brazil. Yeah, all actually quite serious deals, but you see now that these valuations that used to be absurd about a year ago, 2 years ago, now they're getting into more acceptable waters, and therefore more of these deals are likely to be seen. It's also interesting to see actually that there's, for example, the Nasdaq deal, you see that a lot of the market players are actually focusing on data. Right? So for example, ESG data is very important these days. And you see that a lot of companies are actually focusing now on how do we get access to this data. And parties like Bloomberg, Reuters, but also Nasdaq are really focused on completing the value chain of data, because it's just really hard to understand, for example, the impact that all your investments have across the world. So especially the drive towards ESG reporting is a really big one that creates a lot of shifts in the market. And then another one, as the last one in the European market, that Deutsche Bank applied for a digital asset license. So it's quite interesting to see also crypto valuations been jumping up in the last month, which had a lot to do with parties like Deutsche Bank acquiring a license to be able to deal with crypto. So before you saw the institutional parties were just not able to touch it, but now you see that actually they still think that there's a real big market for it as an investment product, and so they're all stepping in to actually start providing financial products with that. Quite interesting to see, I think, and that's also why one of the reasons that we actually saw crypto prices jump up again over the past month. Anything I missed? Did you guys have any news like from recently? Do you think, why are we talking about that?
Digital euro, maybe?
Either digital euro, yeah, of course. In all the packages, we didn't list all of them because Europe has, 2 pages of legislation that they filed last week. But indeed, they also filed a proposal for the digital euro, even though it almost immediately got shelved because basically the Rekenkamer from Europe, they already almost immediately put a counter proposal at the table where they said like, this is all really nice for experiments, but please don't do anything for the coming few years because this is not done yet, we're not ready, and we're even not sure which problem we're trying to solve here. So you see that it's interesting to see how they're also within Europe, there's some forces that actually are pushing very hard for it, like the ECB, for example. But you see that there's legislators are still not so sure whether it's a good idea. And that's also what I actually hear in the market. Here is that there's a lot of debate still about whether we actually need something like a digital euro. So the narrative there is not done yet. Yeah. But thanks for mentioning it. Yeah, good point. Any other? Good enough for now? Okay. Well, otherwise we'll pop it up later, and we'll probably get some nice topics by also in the presentations later on. Just as you always, we track a bit the largest funding rounds. So here we got 105 million for Mistral AI, and 90 million for Amarta, and 55 for Tunes. Quite nice to see these investments. They're slightly lower. Normally you would actually see like 250, 300 million would be quite on the higher end of the amount. So you see actually that the numbers are a bit lower than we're used to in June. Unfortunately, there were also investments in the Netherlands with Sprink getting a 20 million round, which is quite decent for the Dutch market, and Treasy for 300 million. So it's quite nice to actually see that the funding rounds do keep on coming, but you do see them become a bit more selective, and the valuations and the amounts are slightly more modest than we're used to over the past year. And then, for the ones that don't recognize this just yet, these are sort of the index that we have for every Friday. We send out a global fintech news update, and there you'll find these news items, the analysis, the research pieces, and everything that we show here. So if you want to really stay up to date, please check in that newsletter to give you that into your mailbox every week. Here we saw an interesting one where you see the growth rates of non-digital and digital firms. There was quite an interesting report by the ECB on how actually these different firms have a different growth perspective these days. So you see that digital firms, especially of course during COVID, were able to pick up quite a bit, but you see that they really sustain their growth much more than non-digital firms these days. So you see, and I think that was also actually this morning still in the newspaper, that the hardware industry, base materials, industrial processing, that's actually already in a recession these days, even though the rest of the economy still is pretending like nothing is going on. You see that the base value chains really, and everything seems to sort of stop. Everyone is sort of emptying stock at the moment rather than actually producing extra. So there's a lot of worry about the upcoming recession, and you already can see that in that part of the industry. But that's enough. From my end, I hope that was clear and you find that useful. I hope you paid attention later on for the Kahoot quiz. And then I'd like to ask Jelle to step forward. Talk a little bit. Come on up. Here you go.
Hello. Thanks for joining us here. My name is Johan Maas. I work at Wordline for almost 20 years in the payment industry, payment innovation specifically, focused upon. So why are we here in the topic on identity? Our roots are indeed into payment, but we definitely believe that by combining digital payment with digital identity, we can help bring more convenience to the market, to your customers, to the customers of many businesses there. So as said, small words on Wordline for those of you that do not know us that well. Our roots are in payment. We service merchants, more than 1 million merchants, bringing payment solutions for them, facilitating them doing their business. We are all a bit customer. We also have solutions for end users like you and me via the banks. We have payment processing solutions for the banks. And as a third sector, we focus on solutions beyond payment in sectors where payment is an important part of the user experience, like mobility, for example. The example that you gave on tap to pay on public transport, you just walk in by using your payment mean, those type of solutions in multiple sectors. And that's also why we see a link with the identity, digital identity going on there. By doing that, we know what it is to have a lot of transactions. We know what it is to create trusted solutions. Trust is important for payment. If you talk about identity, it's even more. Same thing goes for compliance. We know how to build compliance solutions. Payment compliance needs to be here. Identity, of course, even more than that. So in that sense, we have building blocks that help you create mobile wallets or even wallets on a browser based for accessibility for people that cannot afford or do not know how to handle the latest innovations on smartphones. Also solutions that allow you to do identity, for example, in a mobile browser. So linking that then into bringing more convenience. And why are we talking about it now? It's because Europe came up with new EID regulations, trying to create a more open ecosystem around it, where wallet issuers creating a secure wallet, where attribute issuers, so others allow you to put credentials in that wallet, the government vouching what's your age, what's your nationality, local government accrediting where you live, a bank maybe even telling you this guy has a fixed income every month. Those type of informations you can store in those future wallets using verifiable credentials as an open standard. And then the most important part, and that's also why we are focusing on it, is the link with the third factor, the acceptor, the relying party. That's where can you use those identity credentials. And there are two reasons why we are there. Our customers, banks, merchants, they will be obliged, the big ones, to accept authentication solutions coming from third-party wallet issuers. So you're a big merchant, your e-com shop, suddenly you can log in with other identity wallets. Maybe banks need to accept the fact that payments will be signed from an identity wallet that is not on the banking side. So that is the pressure that is there from a regulatory point of view. So we want to facilitate that for merchants, for banks. But secondly, we strongly also believe that it can bring additional convenience. And that's what I wanted to talk about today a bit more. How can we bring convenience to us all in everyday shopping, in everyday things that we do, where payment is part of it, that's still our core, but how can we increase that convenience by combining it with identity credentials? So that's the part that I wanted to talk to you about, bringing you 4 example use cases. On the left side, stuff that exists today. More on the right side, really looking into the future. So the cases that I brought was, the first one is just about the traditional e-commerce payment with card. How can that link into identity wallets? Second one is about using payment in a more innovative environment, in-car payment. Again, combining aspects of identity, authentication, the security around it, and the payment aspect. That's a closed ecosystem. And then looking into the future, the third one, really leveraging that open identity framework that we're trying to create in Europe, with the verifiable credentials as a technical core in there, creating an open solution that combines payment and identity. How can that bring convenience? And then the last one, I could not claim to be part of an innovation lab if I would not add one more futuristic use case, talking about virtual reality and linking it into indeed the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets as a last example. So as a first one, I think in the Benelux region, Belgium, the Netherlands, we're quite used to it. If you do an e-commerce payment, you can confirm it with your mobile phone. And for big banks, they have their own solution, fully integrated with a mobile app that you have a very good user experience. Now, what you can also do for smaller players is linking that. So you want to do payments, you enter your card details, you come to the bank authentication page, and then you can use the local digital identity wallet. And excuse my French, I'm coming from Brussels, so I took a Belgian example of It's Me here, the integration of integrated with that identity wallet for 2 things. One, it confirms that it's me, that I'm Johan, so the account or the card that I'm trying to use, the bank can validate that it's indeed me. And secondly, I sign the consent for the payment. So to have a fully strong customer authentication solution with a consent fully PSD2 compliant in this stage in the future, moving towards PSD3 of course, doing that using that identity one, and then completing the payment. Now, actually the integration between the worlds of payment and identity here is rather lightweight. You have the payment part, you enter your card details, you come to the page of the bank, and then you have the identity part, authenticating and signing something, and then that creates again a cryptogram in the payment aspects to handle the payment. So they're actually very loosely coupled, but still this provides convenience even for smaller players, smaller banks that do not have their own mobile banking solution. Moving to a second example that is active since recent as well, looking into payment into new environments, in-car payments. The example here, via your voice, you interact with the entertainment system. You might reserve a spot to charge your car. You might ask that they prepare you a small pasta salad to go along. While charging, you want to have something to eat. So you order that in your car, and in the solution here, you use then your biometrics of your fingerprint to confirm the payment. You give the consent, yes, I want to do it. And again, combination of two things. You're identified, which means that the services you ask for, they're linked to you, to your account. So whatever loyalty points or other advantages they're brought to you. And then secondly, the payment is executed as a card on file. So I registered my card in the wallet of this provider, and the payment gets executed like that. So actually, this is a very simple use case, even if it looks a bit futuristic. I doubt that one of us here already has that live today, but it does work, but it's simplistic. Why? Because it's a closed ecosystem. This is the ecosystem of the car manufacturer, and he handles it completely like that. So combining identity and payment in this case is in that closed environment. And that's where we try to expand it and moving beyond to create it in a more open world, to be ready for what I introduced in the first slide, that ecosystem that we're trying to establish in Europe using open standards behind the scene of verifiable credentials. So in this example, we have, it sells beer. I want to get that beer in Belgium, you need to be 16 before you can get that. So if someone would put a thing like that on the market, you definitely need also the age verification. So imagine that just by selecting it, you have a QR code to pay, you open up your wallet, you scan it, and you give the consent to do two things. One, of course, initiate the payment, but secondly as well, share a credential that shows that you're at legal drinking age. You don't even need to share your birth date or whatever, but if the government or even a bank could give that credential, you can do that validation in one go.
And that completed almost 1 million sessions in the Dutch market. And what do? We are a platform for personal data sharing. So we try to be the digital onboarding tool for all kinds of processes, and then especially processes where lots of technical or financial information is required. So you can think about credits, private lease, but also housing associations, mortgages, all these kinds of processes. So whereas before everything needed to be delivered on paper, now when you use Octo, you get the data delivered to you digitally, but also we get it from the source itself, and which makes it that you can handle this data differently than a paper form in your internal processes. And how does it work? The servicer, as I call it, and those are the Octo customers, they will send the users an invite for them to download the Octo app and use it for their process. Then the consumer will download the Octo app, scan the QR code which goes along with the invite, and the user will be asked to, in the mobile app, to get the data from different sources. So in the case of identity, we offer, for example, the BRP, as we call it in Dutch, so that's the government database of persons information, but we also have access to IDEN and PSD2, for example. And once the data is all collected into the app for the user, then the user can review the data and give its consent, and then share the data with the servicer who acquired access to it. Right now we're mostly a transactional platform, but I expect that in the future we will be able to keep this data for longer than we do now. And what types of data can we share via Opto? Well, we have lots of sources, but we offer identification and authentication. We get data from public data sources. We get lots of data from government data sources, so for example your tax authority or the Dutch income institution UWB. We also have PSD2 connections, and we are currently working on setting up personal documents and forms, and that's more for free forms types of data. So take a picture of some document which is acquired, or answer some questions which are specific for the onboarding process of that servicer. And of course, we can sign the data we deliver using a certificate, which is tied to the identity of the user of the app. So what do? We create a secure and a trusted overview of the user in your processes. We use the actual source data, so there's no more need for paper proof or scanning and proving documents, and that leads to improved first-time right ratio, and in the end that will deliver happy consumers and happy services. So that was my presentation. Any questions?
Let's first give you a big hand.
Lynn. All right. Thank you. All right. I'll tell you a little bit more about digital signatures and identification, as they go hand in hand. So my name is Geerling. I'm a former financial advisor. I used to work for Deloitte and ING Bank, but I changed my career in 2017, and I went from banking to tech, and from a corporate to a startup. Well, currently a scale-up, I would say. And I'm the CEO and owner of Zinio. So what do we do? So we are a platform for trust. We provide trust, efficiency, and legal certainty in online agreements. We do that with e-sign or digital signatures, e-delivery, which is some kind of registered email, instead of your mailman, and e-seals, where you seal documents. The basis is AEDAS, or the EU regulation defining trust services, through laws and technical requirements. So there is some kind of basis within Europe on trust services, where you have laws and also technical requirements to provide those. Some of the, I would say, customer examples, how our platform is used. So, for instance, NVM, or Dutch Real Estate Broker Association, is using it for residential sales and purchase contracts. And in this case, they're using bank identification for signing. Of course, we provide other kind of means, but for this kind of documents, we provide bank identification, also because everybody has it. Another example is, for instance, Handelsbanken, using it for residential and commercial agreements, where we use also, again, bank identification, but also something additional. Before you can see a document, you have to identify yourself with some kind of two-factor access authentication. Another example is the notary sector. Within the notary sector, it's used to, for instance, sign a power of attorney, which is used by qualified signature, which is a certificate on your name to sign a power of attorney, where the notary can use it to execute the deed. So why would you use a digital signature? It's faster, of course. It's cheaper. It's less labor cost. Less paper, which is good for the environment. But also it's more efficient because you can automate processes. You can do it directly from your existing software, send the documents, and it comes back It's also more secure because you can identify the signee beforehand, and not afterwards, where you have to see whether or not the physical signature was correct. And you also have more control, because you can exactly see in the process who receives the document, whether someone has opened the document or reviewed the document. I want to show you a little bit. Let me take a little bit of water. How the process works. I think most of you have already done it, digitally signed the contract. But just how it normally works, you receive an email. So you receive an email with an invitation to review the document. And when you click on the light button in this case, you come to our environment. There is the document stored, and it shows you which steps you have to proceed. It also shows you which authentication tool is used to sign the document. Whether that's just a mouse scribble, SMS TAN, or bank ID, or certificate. That's based on the sender of the document requires the way you sign the document. And the next step, you can review the document, and if you agree, you go to the next step. Nope. Yes. And next step, I take the example of the bank identification. So what you do here, in this case, you can, in my case, ABN AMRO. I am guided to the environment of ABN AMRO. ABN AMRO saying, you're going to use this information and send it to us. And that's all the accountable information. So it's my name, my surname, my date of birth, and my address. And once they're done, you're finished. And what we do, we have an audit trail. So all the information, all the steps of the signing process, we list and we add the accountable information to the audit trail. Accordingly, everybody gets back the signed document. We can download it also from your account. Of course, this is quite important, the proof of the signature. So how can you make sure that whether or not it's a valid signature? We do that with, of course, the audit trail, which is on the right. Certified timestamps. So every timing, all actions is the real time, so it's not the computer time. And we seal the whole document. So you cannot tamper anymore with the document. To show you a little bit how that works. So if you see the light blue part, it says signed and all signatures are valid. So that's based on your reader, for instance, Adobe. So Adobe can see whether or not the document is signed valid. And then you have the audit trail with all the actions from Sunny, in this case myself. And you can also see personal information from the transaction. So this was just an example of sign with the bank ID, but of course there are other ways to sign a document. If you want to try it yourself, you can go to a website and try, for instance, the authentication with your telephone. That was just my short presentation. I've got 5 minutes. I think I made it.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. I think we have to come up with another name. It's Inverit, but before it was Innovale. We just changed the name. And that's a very good question. So talk about identities, that's our bread and butter. So I work for Inverit. We just recently changed the name. We have a product called Week ID. and we try to promote NFC first, especially when it comes to fraud prevention. So the aim of today, in 5 minutes, is to explain a bit more about NFC, but also to explain a bit more about technologies that are available, and maybe considerations when it comes to identity verification. So, because that's in a way, it's the anchor of many solutions. I heard It's Me, we're in the It's Me solution, our component. I know that Senior have been working with some of our partners as well, you mentioned already some. So we try to become the standard. Currently we are, globally. This year, we exist 10 years. We're Dutch, about 55 employees. And like I said, we really focus on the NFC journey and the NFC technology. We've done it for 10 years. Maybe if you do banking with ING or Rabobank, you might have encountered us. Or It's Me, or many of the EID programs internationally. We really focus on the mobile space, the mobile area, all being consumers. I also see that my daughters, if they want something to buy, they just do it via a small screen. I still prefer to have a web interface, but my daughter is ordering everything, whatever she wants. And when we talk to banks, then they say, okay, how do you make sure that the person is the person that is really opening an account? And I said, normally I expect people sitting on the couch. I said, no, we have people that are on the top of the mountain, or even taking a shower. So it's so wherever we are, we want to do all kinds of transactions. So the transactions can vary, of course. As you all know, opening a bank account, like I said, if you do that with the Rabobank here or ING, you will encounter us. If you log into governmental services, It's Me is a good example, but for example in Estonia they have a Smart ID, in Denmark they have Mid-ID, in Norway they have Bank ID, we're all in there as well, where consumers can easily with one app log into various services. Traveling, very interesting of course, if you book your flight or hotel, but also getting at the airport, and there's a lot going on currently in the European legislation with the entry and exit system. It's a bit like ESTA for the US. They're introducing this now here in Europe, and we just recently found out that hey, we can maybe also do it already mobile, instead of people entering a harbor and then waiting for a kiosk. So those areas we will be there, passing the borders. Another example, electronic ID in Denmark. You can put your driver license in an app already. And they're very I guess one of the most data sensitive countries, and they don't have a national database of images, so they use the passport, and we help them extracting the image, which is in there, and they use that image from the passport and put it in the image in the app. So people can show they're already over 18, for example. Now, notary services, Senior has explained that, and NBC for hiring new employees, a copy passport. We also do it ourselves. If you have a new hire, we send them a link and then they go through the process. But also in the UK, for example, right to work, criminal record checks. If you use NFC technology, you only can rely on that. Otherwise, you have to do it with 2 or 3 documents. So multiple use cases. So in our world, we are a bit disrupting, and I'm sure you all have been through some of the technologies. There are roughly 3 remote identity verification technologies. The first is optical. So you make a picture of your passport, you send it, and then it goes into a process based on AI, which is a bit of a black box, because they don't tell you exactly what they do, but they do more than 20 checks. They need a hologram, the format, the color, the size. And if you're in doubt, sometimes there might be an agent behind that. So as an extra check, which we call hybrid. The good thing is that supports all documents, roughly. If you talk to a Confido or Verif, they could do all. The downside is that it's always an interpretation. And you have false positives. So out of the 100 people, 20 are not correct. But do you know which 20 are not correct in there? To the right is more video technology. Maybe there will be new legislation now in Europe actually, but the KMB, the notaries here, and in Europe, you can, if you start a new business, you can do that entirely remote. So you don't have to go to the notary. You can do a video session with notary, because they have to check that you do this at free will. that you're not, somebody's putting a gun to your head. So if they do that with a video, that helps. But what we also sometimes see in Germany, that if you're on board to a bank, that you have to show your passport in front of the camera, and that the one on the other side have to assess whether this document is real. And there are a lot of movies that is total nonsense, of course. You cannot, via a camera, decide if this is a real document. But the legislation in Germany says you need to do it like this. But okay. And in the middle we have NFC. Now, we are, of course, promoting that. So why are those passports so secure? And that's a bit gone already, the icon. There are 3 mechanisms in those documents. The same applies to the identity cards. First is that you have to get a token to open the chip. That's a privacy measure. So if I would be in a queue and I have my passport like this, it's impossible to extract the data that's in here. You have to open it. You have to scan the machine-readable zone, as it's called, and then you get an access token. And then you put your smartphone on it and you can extract that data. So that's a privacy measure. Then within the chip there's a digital signature. In my case it's the Dutch government. So actually this is the personal certified governmental database of myself. So this is the most secure available database. I don't have to tap into any other third-party source. And we check the digital signature there. And the third element that we do is also check that the chip has not been copied. And that's what we call the cloning detection. It's like a USB stick. That might be original data, but it also could be copied. And this is the process that you have to go through. So normally this is also a self-service process. So people can do that from anywhere. See? So when we talk, or when you're confronted with an organization, these are some of the considerations that our customers make when they choose a technology. It can be around conversion, which is important. It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 customers that maybe 20 or 30% do not make it, and they start calling you. Is that an issue or not? Scalability. We see that we also talk to many startups, and they say, yeah, we don't know how popular our service will be, so it can be 100 a week. But if it's a big success, it can be maybe hundreds of thousands. Security, that was the question here. We've done approximately, I guess, 20 million documents so far. As far as we know, there has never been any false acceptance in all the cases that we work for. Is it real time? How important is that? If you do a transaction, does it matter to you if you have to wait? If you open a bank account, I once had to do it for a credit card. I had to re-verify myself, being there for 5 years, 10 years. And I was deliberately taking my driver license, and it's a black and white, it's a small picture, so it was a bit blurry. I thought, let's see what happens. And I sent that, and it took them 4 or 5 days to get back, to say, okay, no, it was really you. If you do with NFC, you can read it instant, it's microseconds, and you know it for sure, if it's okay. Documents, what kind of coverage? Are you just focusing on those chip documents, or are you also would like to support other documents? In the UK, for example, everybody carries a driver license, but that does not carry a chip. But there's a lot of acceptance to use that document. And data quality. If you make an image, maybe you've experienced yourself, again, it will be roughly okay, but there will also be many errors. There's some missing here. I don't know if you ever have been in this position. Any clue which ones we should also add in terms of your considerations? No, sorry. Think about my 5 minutes. Yeah?
Validity
Of what? Validity of what?
of the document, if it's not expired.
Yeah, you can find it on the document or in the chip. So that's, yeah. What I mean here, thanks, is legislation, regulatory. That's a big drive in Europe. If you try to standardize, for example, in Germany, like I said, sometimes you have to do video. In the UK, for certain industries, for real estate, by the way, it's highly recommended to use NFC, so regulation is one. And another one is more availability, more in terms of, would you like to do it web-based, or are you willing to move to an app? Because that's the big downside, we would not call it, but that's something that for some customers think, so my customers need to install an app to run the NFC technology. Of course, I'm pledging here for NFC, but it's not why would you not do it or why would you do it. What we see, especially for all the use cases that we mentioned, that when it comes to conversion or security and all the items just discussed, and that's where the NFC first comes from. NFC first is the preferred method. We see that embracing here now in Western Europe, in the Nordics. We also have customers now in Australia and New Zealand. The only thing where we see the exception is if there are not those kind of chip documents. And then you say, okay, then you can maybe fall back to the optical piece. You see video here as well. That could be if the legislation require that, and optical could also act as a fallback. If you would add legislation, then it depends what the country in Europe or anywhere would make mandatory to use. So, in terms of technology, I'm more than willing to demo. You can install the demo app. It's free, by the way. You can extract data from your own driver license or passport or ID card. Please try it and see what data is available. So where we say where you can apply the NFC journey, please do so. If not, then there's always a fallback technology. And if you have any questions or would like to discuss anything else, then please let me know. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much then for joining us here today. Again, Esther from Utrecht region, thank you very much for being so kind to co-host us here. Wordline, thank you very much for hosting us here and making your room available. And thank you for sharing as well your insights. And I think for all the speakers, let's give them all a big hand. Thank you very much.